We are Emily and Justin Baldoni. We are parents of a 6-year-old and a 3.5-year-old. We recently moved to Ojai, California, really enjoying that kind of change of pace and lifestyle.
I loved that Justin mentioned the shadow earlier, because from a drama therapy perspective, to name it is to tame it. So when you lean in a little bit to the shadow and you can play the role of the shadow. But, I was thinking that sometimes it can be really nice to play like just a bad character, like a character that you're like, oh, I hate this guy, because there's always going to be some part of us that can identify with this shadow self, I think. And then through that, you're like playing with it, you're getting in touch with it. And that way, to name it is to tame it. You're not needing to then play out those roles in reality.
Yeah, if only everybody could be an actor. No, we don't want that.
In drama therapy, you can be.
Drama therapy is incredible.
Well, that's not, and it's not even just drama therapy. I mean, that's shadow work is an important part of therapy in general. If you go deep enough. But I think we spend our lives, and look, especially Baha'is. I think the Baha'is are far from perfect in this area. We have a long way to go, but we're so afraid in our own faith, and I think in faith in general, of acknowledging that those parts of ourselves. It's tragic for me. And I really think we as a community need to get a lot better at acknowledging that we're broken and we have a dark side, right?
Yeah.
Faith, it's very clear. We're told that we have the physical and the material, we have the higher and the lower nature. The shadow side is just the lower nature, but yet we spend so much time running from it. Whenever you run from something,
it's only going to grow and run faster.
It's like hiding your deep insecurities and fears and shame and the parts of you that are very real and present, but you're embarrassed about in the basement, and that becomes moldy. And what is mold? Well, mold is just toxicity that ends up making you sick.
Yeah.
And very contagious.
And
that too.
And Shoghi Effendi says we're going to become our greatest tests, even in our own community, because we have to learn to acknowledge that we are not perfect, that we are not these ideal people that have it all figured out. We have Baha'u'llah, we have the writings, but we are all screwed up, broken people that can use these writings to heal, but shoving them down and pretending they don't exist isn't the answer. So that shadow work shouldn't just be for actors. It shouldn't just be for drama therapy. It should be for all of us, especially those of us who are trying to walk a spiritual path. 'Cause I don't think you can walk a spiritual path without acknowledging the darkness and the brokenness in you.
I mean, being spiritual does not mean that you're always lofty and always kind and always perfect. Spiritual is not being perfect. It means that we have a guiding light towards like who we want to be, an example, and how we want to be and how we want to show up in the world. But to get to that place of being able to show up as that person as often as possible, you must deal with all aspects of you, right? It all must be felt and held and loved and kind of squeezed out of you and then released.
Yeah.
There is no shortcut.
No.
Spirituality is not a shortcut. You still need to do the work, which means showing up for all of you, all of yourself. And because also in that place, you can show up for all of somebody else,
when we're told what it is to be a Baha'i, what a Baha'i marriage looks like, or what, walking into a city and having folks recognize us from our light and our character. I think that is understanding and knowing the dark parts of you, because it's that vulnerability that actually brings people to us, that makes people attracted to us. It's not perfection. People are turned off by perfection.
Because
it's not relatable.
It's not authentic.
You can't relate to just this perfectly, everything's just, okay. And you're just so subservient and humble and everything is just, because we're human.
I want to interrupt you a little bit, because I feel like you guys are touching on something really important that is sort of talked about, but needs to be talked about more, which is exactly like this perfection, like this perfectionism. And I've seen it recently talked about as like toxic positivity. And I think the religious term would be spiritual bypassing. But I'm wondering, what does this look like? When in the Baha'i writings specifically, it talks about like, turn away from the darkness and focus on the light. I believe Shoghi Effendi says that.
Yeah.
And of course I'm paraphrasing. And then, Abdul Baha is our example. So I love that you mentioned an example. How do we name the shadow to tame the shadow, but then also turn our back to darkness so that we can focus on the light?
I just think that you can, you have these quotes. Baha'is, I think religious people in general love to use quotes to back up an argument or back up a viewpoint, but there are so many other quotes, right? Because Shoghi Effendi also says that the elimination of the ego is impossible, right? So you can turn your back to darkness. And then Shoghi Effendi says, good luck, it'll never happen.
More about the striving.
You need both, right? Abdul Baha says little by little, day by day. Our goal, if you will, is to take ourselves to account, as we know, look at all the things that are pleasing to God and ask for strength to do better. And then look at the things we did that weren't, right? If we were turning ourselves away or, turning away from the shadow, then God wouldn't ask us to look at the things that we did that were bad. He'd say, forget about it. So I think Baha'is completely forget the full scope of the teachings, and we just choose this one that serves us, and we ignore all the others.
Also because it's easier to not look at your stuff, right? It's way easier to show up and just like, no, I'm just going to be good. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be pure.
Yeah.
And then you put out an inauthentic version of that because it's so much easier to not look at your stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've done that so many times in life, but I think to show up authentically kind and patient and compassionate, showing up as a healing force in the world, you must have been in you don't need to be fully healed, but you must be in a process of healing yourself.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that I could mother my children in a healthy, truly loving way if I wasn't also mothering myself.
Yes.
If I'm trying to serve from an empty well, we know this.
Yeah.
You're not showing up 100%, or you're not showing up pure or authentic. And our world needs healing from authentic, strong, and grounded people that have given themselves enough kindness and love and healing that they can show up with like massive patience and compassion, even for people that disagree with them or have a completely different worldview.
Yeah.
That's how we need to show up for each other. And that doesn't come if you're just trying to like find a, what's it called? Like a quick way to spirituality and enlightenment, like you must do the work and you are part of that.
And Baha'u'llah says a man must know his own self.
Right.
And what leads to loftiness or abasement. And you can't know your own self. The only way you can know what leads to abasement, what leads to, you hitting rock bottom is by being in a basement. It's the only way you can actually know it. Otherwise, you're just looking at it and be like, that could. And so he's not asking us to be perfect. There's no place in the faith that is asking us for it. And Shoghi Effendi is very clear that it will never, ever happen. We have Abdul Baha as an example, but we're also told that will never happen. We have to have a goal. And what a gift and a bounty Baha'u'llah gave us with Abdul Baha to say, here's your goal, but you'll never get there.
Yeah, like the secret is the striving, right?
Yeah.
If I'm striving towards something, then I'm not walking backwards, right? I'm striving towards the light, and behind my back is my darkness, right? Because I'm moving forward. Stagnation is death and toxicity. Moving forward is health. But that also means I can't move forward. I can't like propel forward if I haven't dealt with what's behind me. So it's almost like you have to go through these stages to really be set free. And I think that's what it is. It doesn't mean do not look at it, do not deal with it. hold it, deal with it, give it what it needs to be set free, and then you can continue to strive towards the light, towards God, whatever you want to name it.
Here's how I think of it, just like that. You can't become truly spiritual unless you've been in your darkness.
The suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And we're told that life, Shoghi Effendi is very clear, this life is suffering. And if you think about it, when you go to shoot an arrow, you pull it backwards.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just shoot forward, it comes backwards because you need momentum.
You have to pull back and create that tension.
Create the tension, and it's uncomfortable, and it goes back, and then you can shoot forward. You cannot become spiritual, enlightened, I believe even a Baha'i, without acknowledging and looking at and sitting in your darkness.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really relate to that. I was thinking how you reminded me actually that I feel like the times I have grown the most is when I had the hardest times, the most suffering in my life.